آغاز میکنم به سخن حضرت بیدل، حضرت میرزا عبدالقادر بیدل دهلوی. دریای خیالم و نمی نیست در اینجا، جز وهم وجود و عدم نیست در اینجا. رمز دو جهان از ورق آینه خواندیم، جز گرد تحیر رقمی نیست در اینجا. گرد حشم بی کسیت سخت بلند است، از خویش برون آ عالم نیست در اینجا. ما بیخبران قافله دشت خیالیم، رنگ است به گردش قدمی نیست در اینجا. از حیرت دل بند نقاب تو گشودیم، آیینه‌گری کار کمی نیست در اینجا. بیدل من و بیکاری و معشوق تراشی، جز شوق برهمن صنمی نیست در اینجا. I'm starting with a poem by Bedel Dehlavi, 15th century Mughal India. I was somehow thinking it will be all in Farsi, so I don't have the ready-made translation. So this is going to be a spontaneous translation. So forgive me for all the shortcomings that are inevitably going to be part of it. So I'll read the Farsi for the rest of you too, as a reminder. دریای خیال ما نمی نیست در اینجا. We are a sea of perception, but within it there's not a drop of moisture. Note the contradiction. جز وهم وجود و عدم نیست در اینجا. All that exists is the agony and the fear of existence, the illusion of existence that we think we exist. But otherwise, it's Adam. We do not even exist. رمز دو جهان از ورق آینه خواندیم، جز گرد تحیر رقمی نیست در اینجا. We read the secret of the two worlds from a reflection of the mirror, and that is nothing more than a dust with no reality behind it. Obviously, I cut the poem short, it's much longer. گرد حشم بی کسیت سخت بلند است، از خویش برون آی علمی نیست در اینجا. There is a simile. When in olden times armies would march, they would create a lot of dust. And people might see a flag at the beginning and a lot of dust, but nobody knew how many people were really following, how many soldiers were there. Gard al-Lashkar. I'm sure you're familiar with that expression. And so he says, Garde Hashem bi kasiyat sakht beland ast, that my nothingness is marching on, and the dust cloud has reached the heavens. I have no idea that the dust is there, but I am not here. And forget it, there's not even a flag to follow. ما بیخبران قافله دشت خیالیم، رنگ است به گردش قدمی نیست در اینجا. ما بیخبران, we the ones who do not know. And generally that is not an attribute we want to own. We all know. We know, and we know better than anyone else. But Bedel says that he's not referring to us, the human nature, as the ignorant. Okay, that would be jahl. But he says Beichabar. And Chabar in this case means a person who has not had the chance of knowing the other side of a reality, to get a step beyond, to have access to better revelation. So since I'm on this side of the revelation, there's no revelation. So I don't know. So he says, we are all part of a caravan of the ones who have not had the revelation. This side, there is no revelation because you're in it. This is what we'll be explaining later, what the bubble is. Revelation is when you step out of that. It is revealed, it becomes known. Where you are is already known, so known cannot be revealed because it is known. It's the unknown that becomes known. So he says that we, the ones who are on this side of that line of reality, we are travelers in this desert of imagination, in this desert of illusion. All there is color that has faded. But in reality, we are not even taking a step. That even the assumption of us traveling is not so. Because when we travel, you travel through distance. And he says the distance is irrelevant. Wherever you are, that's where you are. You think you're traveling, like on a treadmill. از حیرت دل بند نقاب تو گشوده آیینه‌گری کار کمی نیست در اینجا. Hayrat is the state of awe. We describe God in images that are familiar to us. But as the Sufis understand, there is a stage. After the stage of desire, the stage of love, the stage of knowledge, then the stage of contentment, and then you get to Hayrat or Hayrat. And when you get there, you see the divine in terms that are totally unfamiliar to you. And that's why you're in a complete state of awe. You don't know what happened. So he says, as Hayrat Dil, that is my heart. And by heart, it's not meant the cardiovascular and the whole stuff here that doctors talk about. The heart is the core of your being. That is the core of my being here. That is desiring to unveil your countenance. تا بند نقاب تو گشوده. در عطش و در گرسنگی و تشنگی این که جمال و جلال تو را ببینیم این نقاب را گشودیم. ولی بدان آیینه‌گری کار کمی نیست در اینجا. For you to be the mirror is not that easy either. And he concludes when his به دل من و بیکاری و معشوق تراشی جز شوق برهمن صنمی نیست در اینجا. به دل means the one without the heart, forlorn, the one fallen in love. This is the pen name of Mirza Abdul Qadir Dehlavi. And he says, me, remember he didn't have the heart, but now he is somebody. Manu bekari, and I have nothing more important to do. And mashuk tarashi. So he says, I'm sculpting my idol. Now, not because I don't know anything better, but juz shawq berahman. Now, of course, since he lived in India, he is symbolically mixing the deities of Islam and Hinduism. So Barahman means God, Almighty, and many historical mythologists or mythologists of historical thoughts believe that it was probably the word Barahman that a man by the name of Ibrahim followed when he went from India to Babylon and yonder to Canaan or Palestine. And therefore, the word Berahma and Ibrahim has the same consonants. And also, Ibrahim in the Arabic etymology would be the person who understands God through reason, Burhan, Dalil wa Burhan. When you reason the understanding of God, that is Burhan. And Ibrahim reasoned it. Because I'm sure most of you know the Quran. In the earlier revelation, Ibrahim has an argument with God. And God says, I am. And he says, how do I know? Show me. So he wants proof, he wants reason, he wants Burhan. And so God puts him to a test with the birds and all that. We're not going to go there, but just understand that part of it. So, he says, just Shawkat Rahman, that the only driving force that is taking me to where I'm going, remember the caravan in the dust? The only raison d'etre, the only purpose of this whole thing is that it's the love of God. Sanami neist dar inja. I'm not an idol worshipper. I do sculpt and shape things, but they do not represent anything except my desire for reaching God Almighty. اینجا میرسیم به تعریفات کلمه خلوتگر، حباب و ذهن که هر سه کلمه کلیدی است. خلوتگر جای تنهایی با فهم این که جای تنهایی با معشوق. So, sanctum from the Latin, sanctimonium, sanctuary, implies the holiness. It's usually a temple, a place in which you want to be alone. But you don't want to be alone unless you're alone with the alone. That's the key word. Unless you're alone with the alone. And who's the alone? God, the beloved. So when we say khalwatgah, we are going to that sanctum to be alone with the alone, not to be alone by ourselves. Because if we want to be alone by ourselves, we probably need to see a therapist.
No. I just realized the word alone has the word one.
And so does lonely. Both the word lonely has the word one inside of it, and alone has the word one in it. But it's the alone that goes up that way. Lonely is when you feel so lonely that you don't think you belong with anyone or anyone cares about you. So that is the word khalwatgah or sanctum. And the next word is the word hubab. I love Arabic because no matter how many languages I speak and how many languages I explain, there's nothing that matches the etymology of the Arabic language and the way words are created. So if I ask you the word hubab, what word comes to mind? Jishak, اشتقاق. شکل درست ولی حب با حروفش بازی کنید. حب چیز؟ حب exactly. حب محبت است. کدام محبت؟ محبتی که انگیزه خداوند بود برای خلقت ما. كنت کنزا مخفیا فاحببت حب فاحببت لکی بعرفه. God says I was a hidden treasure. I loved to be known. Many scholars translate the second part as I wanted to be known. I think that's a big mistake for two reasons. One, philosophical. If God wants something, that's a needy God. God cannot be needy. But if God created us out of love, love is not need, but the exact opposite. Because in love, you give, not that you take. In need, you take. In love, you give. So, hubab comes from hope. And now that you describe the shape, the bubble Yes, it is that bubble shape here, and we are in it alone with the alone, exactly. Now, this could be healthy if you have the insight, if you have the education, if you have the understanding. But if somehow you went and locked yourself up in an isolation, I wouldn't use the next word, you know what I mean? Then that could be sickly. Now, the third word is a little too detailed, zehn. And people translate zehn in different ways. I will tell you what I mean by this. Well, ذهن به معنای تجربه. تجربه چی؟ تجربه که از راه حصول معلومات و معلومات که باز از راه حواس بسته‌بندی و تقسیم بندی می شوند و شکل جمع آوری شده این تجارب برای ما یک ذهنیت می سازد. این ذهنیت برای ما واقعیت را تعریف می کند و در آن واقعیت ما خود را می بینیم و خود را می یابیم. اینجاست که ما ذهنیت داریم. ذهنیت دیانتی، ذهنیت سیاسی، ذهنیت مثبت، ذهنیت منفی، هر گونه ذهنیت هست. So the mindset that we have is the perception. What is perception? Perception is that which you perceive. Now, perceive doesn't mean it's real. Perceive is that which comes into your view. But in the view, you have to understand what is it that is being seen, who is seeing it, and what is the interaction between the seer and the seen. So let me give you an example. You have a camera. And I'm sure you've heard of many contests where people win prizes for photography. And you look at the picture and you say, yeah, well, of course I can take that one too, no big deal. Can you? Not possible. And here's the reason. Because the camera appears to be constant, but you're not constant, nor is the scene. So it depends on how you position the camera, the angle, the light, and what do you think is going to appear in that view, in the viewfinder. So then you, as a good photographer, must have a dialogue with your subject, what appears on the other side. You must talk to your subject. You must sense it. How is it going to appear? Who's going to look at this? So it's an interactive thing, photography, like arts in general. So when you connect with your subject and the subject connects with you, then you can connect with your viewer, that anyone else who looks at it from that point where the lens was positioned, they will see the beauty. And if they can't, there's no reason. I've seen people, they go to the museum and somebody's just standing there and looking and standing, looking and standing, looking for a long time. And people are passing by and they're like, what's wrong with that guy? Because you're not seeing the same thing. You have to have the eye of an artist to connect with the artist and recapture the moment where you were. پس این ذخیره معلوماتی که ما در ذهن خود میگیریم از اشخاص، از مردم، از کشورها، از جامعه، از مذاهب، دیانت‌ها و همه محض شنیدن یک کلمه ذهنیت ما برای ما یک سری معلوماتی داره که میگه که فرض کنیم در جامعه امریکایی محض که گفتن مسلمان باید در پهلویش چند کلمه دیگر باشه که ضرورت نیست اینجا. Perception is a collection of the things that you experience in life. It's this I can't call it treasure because treasure always means positive. But this deposit of the experience you have creates for you presumptions, creates filters, that whenever things appear on the other side, you look to those things through your filters. We always look to things through our filters. Now, as a Muslim, if you go to a Christian church, you already have so many filters there. How you're going to deal with things and vice versa. Okay? If you're a Republican, go to a political rally by the Democrats, for instance, or anything for that matter, whether they are similar to you or different. Now, we are going to go beyond the politics. We are going to try to dwell on the concept of the bubble, and that bubble is actually the bubble of the perception, which we create, but in return, it defines us. It's the bubble of perception that gives our life meaning. It establishes values for us, what is good, what is bad, and all the rest of it. Things are good and bad only because we live in a particular bubble. Now, all of us have bubbles, and how big the bubbles are, we'll get to that in a minute. For those of you who were in my lecture at the Ibn Rushd or Averroes like a week or two ago, I say there something, not of mine, his, was that he argued if religion seeks God as the truth, and if science seeks truth, then seeking truth in two different ways cannot contradict each other. So it's okay to accept science for an understanding of religion and vice versa. Scientist tries to find the truth of the totality of this cosmic reality by starting with the smallest particle they can find. That's Houston Smith for you. So you go to molecule, you go to atom, you go to subatomic level. You want to find the smallest thing to prove something, from which then you can draw a conclusion that if this smallest thing is true, then we can find an answer for the biggest thing. Religion, on the other hand, goes to the biggest thing. It starts with God. It never gets to the atom and the subatomic level. So they say, if we can prove God, then we don't have to worry about the small things. So if the truth is in the middle, whether you want to get to it from the side of religion or the side of science, it doesn't matter. Somewhere you'll find your way. In that bigger circle, in that bigger bubble, now we are going to Jungian psychology, there's a concept called the universal unconscious. And below that is another concept, which is consciousness. And below that is conscience, conscience, the way it's spelled. And below that is the intellect. Farsi. Universal unconscious یعنی کلیت افلاک و کائنات در سطح شعور ناآگاه. مهمترین بخش اینجا ناآگاه است. بعد از سطح ناآگاهی پایین‌تر میایم به سطح شعور. شعور خود به معنای آگاهی است. از آن پایین‌تر آگاهی یا وجدان. و وجدان نوع آگاهی است که در آن باز هم از راه ریشه‌یابی کلمات عربی وجدان باید از کدام کلمه مشتق شده باشد؟ وجد از کجا آمده؟ از وجود. یعنی داشتن یک وجود. وقتی شما به وجد میایین اظهار وجود میکنید. همان مستی که میکنید در وجد اظهار وجود میکنید. So you do exist. وجود یعنی چی؟ وجود آن چیزی که دارای تحرک است. در عالم هستی هیچ چیز بدون تحرک نیست. پس از سطح وجدان پایین‌تر میایم به سطح عقلانیت. پس شعور ناآگاه مثل این است که تمام عالم هستی، ما همه وسایل و ابزاری که داریم، ما گاه میگن که صداهایی را شنیدیم، wavelengths are being heard، ولی در غیر آن تقریبا همه یک عالم خاموشی مطلق است، در خواب است. این حالت در خواب بودنش را میگویند که شعور ناآگاه است، یعنی بیدار نشده. این نیک وجود نداره ولی بیدار نشده. پس بیداری در کجاست؟ بیداری آنجایست که از این سطح شعور ناآگاه شعور به تحرک می‌آید. انسانیت ما در چیست؟ زمانی به ما گفتن که انسان حیوان ناطق است، پس هرگز نیست. تمام حیوانات وسیله ناطق. آنچه که انسان را از حیوانات دیگر متمایز می‌سازد که طبعا با تعصب یکجاست دیدگاه این است که ما آگاهی را حاصل کردیم. ما صاحب آگاهی شدیم. در داستان خلقت آدم که 2 4 5 6 7 سال قبل همینجا روش بحث کردیم، اونجاست که این بیداری و این میماند که شما یک بحر بیکران دارید. این بحر کاملا آرام است، اقیانوس آرام که میگیم. ما از حضور بحر زمان آگاه میشویم که یک قطره به آن بریزیم. قطره چی میکنه؟ اولین کاری که میکند تحرک ایجاد میکند، موج ایجاد میشه. ما از روی امواج میفهمیم که بحری هست. بعد از آن که این قطره در آب میریزد، در بحر میریزد، قطره با یک ذهنیت خودستایی و خودشیفتگی و خودمرکز پنداری فکر میکنم که منم. از حضور بحر کاملا ناآگاه است. اما وقتی که در بحر میریزد و با بحر یک میشه، بحر در جواب آن ذهنیت خالی و پوک و بدون محتوایش حباب تولید میکنه. پس اون حباب نتیجه ما بعد این تقرب و این ارتباط بین قطره و بحر است. وقتی که قطره در آب ریخت، تحرک به بیان آمد. تحرک یعنی چی؟ شعور ایجاد شد. آدمیت، نه آدم داستانی که ما همه میشناسیم. آدم تورات و انجیل و قرآن داستان است. درست است، بیانگر حقیقت است، ولی ممکن واقعیت نباشد. اما باز هم حقیقت مهمتر از واقعیت است. پس در سطح این داستان آدم یا آدمیت در مجموع شعور آگاه است. آگاهیش در چی؟ چیزها رو مورد سؤال قرار داد. گفتن از این میوه نخور. چی کرد؟ خورد برای چی؟ اظهار وجود کنن، اظهار اختیار کنن، اظهار آزادی کنن، اظهار فردیت کنن. غیر از آن در خدایی کنن. وقتی که شعور ایجاد میشه، بعدا به شکل وجدان به میان میاد. در سطح وجدان آن منیت ها فعالیت میکنند، چون اظهار وجود از وجود از خود، conscience، و فکر میکند که پس میداند. اما آدم چی گفت؟ خداوند گفت که مگر تو نمیدانستی که باید این میوه را نمیخوردی؟ تفاوت بین آدم و ابلیس حتما به خاطر دار. ابلیس چی گفت؟ ابلیس ادعای فهمیدن کرد که من میفهمم این آدم خاکی خداوند گفت نه، این آدم دارنده روح من است و خاک نبین. پس ابلیس نمیفهمید. ولی آدم چی گفت؟ ربنا ظلمنا انفسنا، خداوند ما در حق خود ظلم کردیم. یعنی نمیفهمید. در فهمیدن آدم در نفهمیدنش بود، نفهمیدن ابلیس در ادعای فهمیدنش بود. اینجاست که ما اگر میریم از سطح کانشنس یا آگاهی در سطح وجدان، در سطح پایینی ما میرسیم به سطح عقل، the intellect. حالا اونهایی که در سخنرانی ابن سینا بودن داستان عقل را اونجا دنبال کردیم. بریم میام وقت و زمان خود ما که دارنده عقل آدم و ابلیس را یک طرف میگذاریم. ما مردم معاصر قرن 18 و 19 و 20 و اینها ما چی فکر میکنیم؟ پس بودن ما در چی است؟ ما کی هستیم؟ کدام بخش از هویت ما، از ماهیت ما نمایندگی از ما میکنه؟ کسی بود گفت که je pense donc je suis, I think therefore I am. می اندیشم پس هستم. دکارت. ولی دکارت از مجبوریت گفت، داستانش جداست. So in this materialistic world that we call the age of enlightenment, there are two mistakes. Too much of an audacity for me, I apologize. The audacity, I justify in following it, it's not an audacity. One, that when you call the age of enlightenment, you imply that the rest of the world is in the dark, and the only thing that counts is your way of thinking, which is arrogant. Number two, the approach that was totally rational, that they perceived, was based solely on the power of reason. And the power of reason is not going to take you everywhere. We talked about it in the class earlier. پای استدلالیان چوبین بود، پای چوبین سخت بیتن که. And believe it or not, sometimes I cook. I'm going to tell you right now, when you cook, can you fry meat in water?
No.
Why?
Frying is soft and to water is soft.
چرا نمیشه؟ پخته میشه. چرا سرخ نمیشه؟ The reason you cannot fry meat in water is because water has the limited capacity to retain heat, 100 degrees Celsius. Once it gets to 100 degrees, it evaporates. So you can boil it all you want to. The heat is not going to go beyond 100. Yes, your meat is going to get cooked, but it will never get fried. So for frying, you have to cook at a higher temperature that the water is not capable of, so that's why you have to put it in the oil. So now, reason is water. If you want to find God through reason, it can take you part of the way, but it can't take you all the way. And you have to understand that. And the problem at the age of enlightenment was that they assumed and took it for granted that reason is the only way we can understand reality, nothing else. But of course, they were fighting against the revelation, reason versus revelation. And my argument is that reason has its own place, revelation has its own place. With each, you will understand some. With both, probably in total, you won't understand anything anyways. But at least it can help you to make that attempt. So, if your singularity, if your physicality is what Descartes which is actually reverse of what Saint-Germain has said. I am, therefore I think. I put that backwards. So he said, I am, so his physicality got the primacy, and therefore my thinking is an extension of my being. Whereas the truth is the other way around. Because our physical being is so limited, it belongs only to a small place. It's our spiritual that has no limit. And so, when you want to make a bubble, which you do even if you don't want to, it depends on what your bubble is made of. Is your world only the world of reason? Is the world of matter? Two great thinkers, one is already cited here, and I took it directly from the work of Dr. Patrick Mahaffey, who is the head of the Mythological Studies Department at Pacifica. My very, very good friend and my boss in a way. Let's study it together. Don't confuse yourself before I have to erase your preconceived notions. Look at the center. There is a circle. There's a line. On top of the line is what? Matter. Above that is next circle, the circle of body. Then we go to the circle of mind, soul, and spirit. Now, these circles are numbered on the right-hand side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, when we want to understand reality, for each one of these we have a science. Matter is studied by physics. It's the one below it. Matter is studied by physics in circle 1. Body in circle 2 is studied in biology. Mind is studied by psychology. Soul is studied by theology, and spirit by mysticism. Now, back to the quote-unquote scientific perception, where all they see is matter and how the matter interacts with itself. They don't believe in spirit, they don't believe in soul, and mind is only a byproduct of what the brain cells and the neurons do. And so they're only left with body, which is only a condition produced to, condition the result of something that happens to matter. So they think only in matter. Now, in this view, there's not an issue of either or. Let me explain that. So in the first circle, there's only matter is studied by physics, that we will call A. But in the second one, in the body, it's not just body, but it's body plus matter. So A plus B. Make sense? And in the third one, in the circle of mind, it is the mind plus the body plus the matter. So A plus B plus C, and then we continue going on like that with the soul and with the spirit. The A is the first circle 1, B is circle 2, and so on. So when you go to that last one, when you go to the last circle, circle number 5, on the right-hand side, you look at the left, it contains what? It is A plus B plus C plus D plus E. In other words, we are not studying just spirit alone, but it is spirit plus the soul plus the mind, plus the body, plus the matter. So, if your approach to understanding is through a small little circle, we could also throw the word bubble there, then you're restricting yourself. پس ما وقتی که حباب به دور خود تشکیل میدهیم، حباب ما مربوط به است که در دیدگاه ما کدام دنیاهای شامل است. دنیای مادر به ذات خود یک دنیا است، قابل انکار نیست، ولی ما غیر از مادر چیز دیگری هم هستیم که تن است، آنچه ما بعضا وجود می‌دهیم. خب در تن هم ماده است، ولی بر علاوه ماده چیز دیگری هم است و در تجربه هایی که اتباع کردن دیدن که مریض هایی که در حال مردن هستند وزنشان در دوره قبل از مردن و بعد از مردن متفاوت است و هیچ نمیدانند که چگونه ای را توضیح و تشریح کنند که چرا. پس از وجود چی کم شد؟ پس خود زنده بودن، حیات هم از خود وزن داره، حتما قافیه هم داره. خب بعدا میریم به سطح مایند که مایند هم باز این حجرات مغزی ما نیست، آن وسیله است. مثل که قلب ما وقتی که عاشق میشیم دلم باختم، right؟ دل باختن در کجاست؟ اگر شما پیش شفاخانه میرین پیش دکتر میگن اشتباه کردن، قلبتان اینجاست. شما میگن من قلبم باخت. پس حالا که اینها را فهمیدیم میگویم که پس در اینجا ما اگر این دایره ها را بزرگ و بزرگتر میسازیم، ما چقدر باید این دایره ها بزرگ شود و در گسترش نهایی آن چی چیزها را شامل شده میتواند. در صنف قرآن که از دوست ما گفتن که به نقل قول از آقای بازرگان که زمان که قرآن میگوید که ما در جمع، منظور از آن تمام. پس این دایره پنجم خداوند است. به این معنا که وقتی که ما میگیم خداوند بزرگتر است، از کجا آغاز میکنیم؟ ما میتونیم از هر نقطه این دایره 1 2 3 4 آغاز کنیم، ولی تا زمانی که ما دایره 5 را شامل آن نساختیم، ما به وجود واجب الوجود خداوند اعتراف نکردیم. چون از اینجا در مقایسه با دایره شماره 5 دایره بزرگتری نیست. اگر خداوند بزرگتر است و این دایره بزرگتر همه این هاست، پس همین مجموع است که خداوند است. پس مشکل ما چی است؟ ما به خداوند شخصیت میدهیم و در شخصیت دادن خداوند را کوچک میسازیم. خداوند نه جسمی دارد مثل ما و نباید داشته باشد، چون جسم محدودیت دارد، محدودیت های دارد. پس اگر خداوند است در همین جا، در همین دایره بزرگ، خدایی خداوند در کجا تمام میشه و بندگی بنده از کجا آغاز و به کجا می انجامد؟ تفاوتی نیست، حد فاصله نیست، خط فاصله نیست. ما خدا هستیم، خداوند در ماست، خداوند اندرونی. ما صرف عادت کردیم که چون خداوند را ما سواز خود میدانیم، معمولا بیرون از خود میپنداریم، ولی خداوند خودش گفته که من در زمین و در آسمان نگنجم، ولی در قلب مومن بگنجم. قلب مومن کجاست؟ اینجاست. پس خداوند در هر جایی که فکر میکنین هست، به شمول جایی که ما هستیم. از حواج بپرسیم چی گفت؟ در پهلوش گفت که در این تنی که میبینم خیام هم میگوید. اول سوال است، در کارگه کوزگری رفتم دوش، دیدم 2000 کوزه گویا و خموش، ناگاه یکی کوزه برآورد خروش، کو کوزگر و کوزه خر. سوال آخری، کو کوزگر و کوزه خر و مرکزش کوزه فروش. ممکن همه اینها باشه، خود کوزه و خود کوزگر و خود دل کوزه. همه خداوند است، در ما، بیرون از ما، در بالای ما. مشکل ما با شخصیت سازی است. با خداوند هم شخصیت مولانا از یک نگاه دیگر می‌بیند آن کیست که بیرون درون می‌نگرد، در اهل جنون وسط فسون می‌نگرد. و از دیدن اگر که دیده چون می‌نگرد، و آن کیست که از دیده بیرون می‌نگرد. مثالی که قبلا گفتم از دوربین عکاسی، چشم انسان کی را می‌بیند؟ درون کی است، بیرون کی است؟ فاصله دقیق. اگر اعتقاد بر این باشد که خداوند لامکان هر مکان است، پس وقتی که پذیرفتم که در هر مکان است، هیچ مکانی نمیتواند از وجود خداوند خالی باشد. پس هر جا خداوند است. وقتی که هر جا باشد، از نگاه توانمندی نه، از نگاه منطق شخصیت پذیر نیست. چرا شخصیت محدودیت‌های زمان و مکان دارد. خداوند چون این محدودیت را نمیپذیره، پس شخصیت را نمیپذیره. To summarize the argument, the God within is as much the God without. Therefore, Khayyam asked the question. His favorite allegory is one: the earthen jar is the human body, made of earth. Jar, because the Quran said it was created from teen. Teen comes from vibrating, echoing, resonating, that produced the sound, that echoed. Where did the echo come from? Why did I use the word echo? Echo does not generate itself. Echo reflects the sound that has been generated from somewhere else. It was the echo, the sound of God that echoed in the human heart that reflected. So Khayyam is asking that question in the allegory of the earthen jar. I went to the pottery den last night and saw 2,000 earthen pots, some quiet, some noisy. One of the earthen pots screamed and shouted. It's like, where is the potter? Where is the buyer for the pot? And where is the seller of it? And then the answer, which is not Khayyam's, I try to play with the words, is that God is all of it. God is the pottery maker. God is the seller. God is the potter. God is all of it. And Rumi is throwing in his own beautiful quatrain. Who is that who sees outside from within my eye, and who looks at those who are lost with a sense of envy? Then look inside the eye. When the eye sees, tell me, who is it that sees from within? And so there's a continuum in the vision in which God occupies every spot or every space between. God becomes the object, the subject, and the interaction in between. So therefore, when we want to understand God, not necessarily from a theological perspective, what you believe, that's your business. But as they use the German terminology, Weltanschauung, starts with the word Welt, world. The closest translation I could give you in Farsi would be Jahan Bini, world view. But the critical thing here is that what is world? Where is your world? How big is your world? How you define it? in return, how that world defines you. I see some people, every time you say something, they say, mashallah, astaghfirullah. I mean, all these slogans they throw about. Oh, wonderful, beautiful. What are they telling me? They are defining their world for me. It doesn't mean they are more religious than I am. Or maybe they are more religious, but it doesn't mean they are more godly than I am. Because who knows whose God is understood in what terms. But that's their world. Okay? Scientists will talk about pretty much the same thing. They wouldn't say the word God, they might use the word energy. And some people might get offended. I don't. It's fine. Qadir, Qadir are the names of God. That's energy. Science for you. So for us to measure the breadth and the width of our world, the realm of our reality, we have to have the ability of sight and of vision. And those are two different things. The sight is the eyes here. The vision is behind it, or it's in your heart, in your head, depending on whether you're a Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, whatever. So the vision is not what you can see visually, but what you can perceive. Of the outer world, what do we see? I look at the stars every night. Not every night, but every so often. I see the same thing. What do they mean to me? Oh, I look at the Pleiades, Khoshe Parveen, romantically. I look at different stars with different significance from different mythologies, religions, and all that. But even if for a moment I try to measure the vast expanse of the space between where I am and where that is, I can't. I could ask a scientist to give me a number. 65 million, thousand, whatever. Put all those zeros there. They don't mean a thing. All it means is it's beyond my perception. So, that if we want to understand the world better, and by world I don't mean this world, we have to cast our net as wide as we can. One thing in which you should not show your prejudice, it should be in your understanding. And scientists are very arrogant, they're very prejudiced. And that doesn't mean people with a deep sense of religiosity are not prejudiced. They are prejudiced too. ما تعصباتی که از خود داریم باعث می شود که حقایق را آنچنان که باید بدانیم، آنچنان که باید حس کنیم، درک نمی کنیم. برای اینکه این فلترهایی را جلو چشم خود میگذاریم و عمدی میگذاریم. عمدن یعنی خود را کور میکنیم ولی ادعای بینایی میکنیم. این حبابی که به دور خود تشکیل میدهیم، این حباب ذهنی ماست. پس حباب ذهنی شما کجاست؟ چقدر بزرگ است؟ آیا آماده هستیم که این حبابتان بترکه؟ بشکنه و شما به اون طرف شما. So the bubble you create is whether you're, no matter how big it is, but are you ready for that bubble, that comfort zone of yours to pop? If you're willing to see it pop, then you got into a new reality. داستان موسی و شبان چی پیام داره برشون؟ شبان حباب ذهنی خیلی کوچک داشت ولی در آن حباب خیلی آرام بود. موسی چی کرد؟ حبابش را ترک کرد. خداوند چی گفت؟ چون این شبان پذیرای واقعیت آن طرف حباب نبود، خود را گم کرد. پس خداوند گفت پس این را ببر در حباب کیها عادت داشت. موسی کارش نادرست نبود ولی شبان آماده پذیرفتن حباب حالا ما میام و یک حباب بزرگتر دیگر. به نظر شما بزرگترین حبابی که در تاریخ بشریت ترکیده کدام است؟ Let me ask the question in English. We have comfort zones. We have these bubbles of perception that we have created, and we feel good in it. But if we stay in it for too long, like stale water, we will rot. So at times it becomes necessary that you break that bubble. There is an analogy from one of the great Sufis who died a few years ago, who said, look at the waves of the ocean. When they come in at the edge on the beach, there are small holes, like potholes, in which there might be, life forms and things. So the water comes and it goes back. If the water doesn't come, the water at the edge of the beach will rot. In order for it not to rot, the ocean has to send a wave every once in a while to change the water, to create a whirlpool there. So, in the human history, here's the question, in the human history, we have experienced the popping of the bubble of comfort, the bubble of perception, the zone of comfort. Which one do you think, in your opinion, was the biggest and most significant? And while you are thinking, let me share with you a tiny little story. I was raised in a village. We had a 3-story house, the tallest house. And we lived in a lush, beautiful green part of Afghanistan. We had gardens all around. It was wonderful. Because it was such a cold place, our schools were off in the winter, not in the summer, because it was almost impossible to heat the schools. And in the winter, there usually wasn't much to do. Yeah, we had to go to the mosque and madrasa, read a few things, but then the rest of the day was too long of a time for someone not to do anything. So I followed my brother's example, who would climb to the roof. And the roof was the most beautiful place because in the winter, all the trees had defoliated, all the leaves were gone. The trees were bare branches. So you could see for miles and miles that in the summer you couldn't, in the spring you couldn't, but in the winter you could. The geography is that there's a river, there's a highway, and there are mountains all around. So I was 5, 6, 7, and this was such a beautiful world. I could see and understand everything. The one thing I didn't understand is that how did they glue the sky to the tip of the mountains? Because all around we had mountains, and the sky canopy went down there. So one day, not in winter, but probably in the spring, my father wanted to take my mother for a visit to Kabul. The mere announcement that we were going in a chariot, horse-pulled chariot, I was so excited. And since I was the oldest son, there are privileges, I sat in the front with my father and the driver of the chariot. And my mother was in the back with my brothers and all that. You would think I would be excited about going to Kabul. My brother was, because you get candies, you get all these things you can buy, all that. But I was excited about something so totally different that I'm sure at that age, 5 or 6, nobody would have thought that's what I was excited about. I was excited about because I knew that this chariot was going and it will get to the top of that mountain, and I would for the first time see where the sky has been glued to the top of the mountain. sure it went on, and my father was carrying conversation with the driver and the whole thing. We're looking around. But I was looking over there. And when we reached that pass close to the mountain, all of a sudden, I had the biggest disappointment in my life. The sky wasn't attached to that mountain. There was another mountain behind that mountain. And my whole world was shattered. The bubble was gone. Now, back to the question I asked. What do you think is the biggest, you don't have to explain, just give me a name. The biggest bubble that has been burst for humanity. Anybody?
Earth is not the center of the universe.
The earth is not the center of the universe. The theory of evolution. Anybody else? Atomic bomb. No. The biggest bubble that burst for humanity is the story of the ascension of the Prophet. Isra wa Mi'raj. And here is why. If you look at the images that people drew before, people couldn't even draw in 3D until the time of, was it Michelangelo or Leonardo, one of those, that created the concept of a 3D image. And since there were no cameras, so that's all what we could imagine. And our world for all humanity was, go to the Ptolemaic astronomy. Here is the world. The sky is like a shield of glass, and it has holes in it. And this shield is moved, and the light from the other side shows through, and we think those are stars. And below that is the lunar level and all that stuff. Yeah, no wonder Galileo had so much trouble. But we'll leave that aside. The reason that the ascension of the Prophet is the biggest bubble is that it questioned the concept of time as a constant. The theory of relativity, Albert Einstein, 20th century. Okay? Isra and Mi'raj said it 1300 years before that. Which was what? That the Prophet goes from Mecca all the way to Jerusalem and ascends to the, we know the rest of the story. But when he comes down from the sky, from the heavens, and he comes back to Mecca, the ring on the door was still oscillating, waving, shaking, which means what? That on the one hand, time could be a fraction of a second for this ring on the door. On the other hand, the time could contain so much more. In other words, time itself is relativity. I'm not claiming to speak scientifically. What I'm saying is that it was the Prophet, through this story of the ascension to the heavens, that gave humankind the notion that time is not a constant. That was number one. Number two, that the world is not as small as we think. In other words, people lived in a bubble, and their bubbles were much smaller than the bubbles we live under. And so, when the story describes that he goes to the first heaven, the second, the third, and the fourth, and keeps going, and he goes along with whom? Who is helping him? Sorry, Jibril. And what is the form of Jibril? Buraq. What does Buraq mean? Barq. Buraq.
What does it mean?
Buraq is the, right. So the angel Gabriel, to think of angel as a field of energy. در قالب یک اسب براق بود. براق is barq, electric. Electromagnetic fields. So you can go beyond that. Right? So how many people knew of electricity as a field of energy that would have its own gravitational force, and then you can get to a point where you defy it. So how far does the Prophet goes on Buraq? Until which heaven? Exactly. So there's the first and the second and the third, and keep going. So after the seventh heaven, the Buraq, Jibreel is telling the Prophet, what? I can't, no, it's not that I don't want to come. I can't go beyond that. This is my limitation. What is Jibreel a symbol of? Jibreel عقل عقل جبریل. دلیلی که جبریل از آسمان هفتم بالا رفتن نمیتونه چون عقل است تا اونجا توان داره. بالاتر از آن عقل، ما که میگیم عقل کوتاهی میکنه، منظور اینجاست. Exactly. بله. ما اینجاست که جبریل عقل است، اینجا محمد قلب است. عشق بر عقل برتری حاصل می‌کند. Gabriel is the symbol of intellect. In Western psychology, they generally consider women to be emotional and men to be more reasonable. In Islamic psychology, it's the other way around. So, yes, it's in Islamic psychology, men are emotional. The point is not that they don't show it. That's a different thing. Men are emotional, but they are socialized not to show it. Women are of reason, of intellect. And that's why when, let's say, a young man like me and a young woman meet for the first time somewhere, what is each one thinking of? Man is all emotional. She's so beautiful, she's excited, I'm crazy and all that. What does the woman think? Can I see your bank account? In the story of Ascension, the angel Gabriel is intellect, the prophet is atifa or love. And both reason and emotion are headed to go where? To heaven to do what? To see God, exactly. And who reaches there? Love reaches, reason doesn't, because the angel Gabriel stops at the seventh heaven and tells the prophet, this is as far as I can go. My wings will burn for. You reach God, you reach love. God is the beloved, not through reason, not through argument, not through science, not through proving this or that. You don't have to prove anything. All you have to do is to be and be your true self. And your true self is defined by the bubble you have created around yourself. In what world do you live? If you live in a small world, a tiny world, a little bubble, chances are that if anyone pops it, you're going to scream and raise hell, because that's all the world that you knew. But if you're in a bigger world, you knew how many worlds have you passed. You knew how many bubbles have you popped. You knew how much your reality had been defined and redefined over and over. I hope, let me conclude with this. I hope that that your world, your bubbles of perception are big enough, so big and so vast and so expansive that nothing bothers you because somebody does something different than you do. You are only responsible for yourself. Nothing is expressed more thoroughly, more emphatically in the Quran than وَلَا تُزِرُّ وَازِرَةً وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. 7 times in exact wording. You are not responsible for anyone but for your own action. Go back to the argument I was making. We're all concerned with how people live. What they wear, how they pray, how they're Shias, they're Sunnis, Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, whatever. Why did they kill all those 250 plus Christians? or the Jews or the Muslims or of any faith. People have different ideologies. The reason we kill around the world is what? Because our bubbles are too small and we don't have room for our bubble to be broken through a reality different than ours.